Good evening, everyone. And the final item of business today is a members' business debate on motion number 7675 in the name of Jim-Eadie on the University of Edinburgh in the world's top 20. This debate will be concluded without any questions being put, and I invite members who wish to speak in this debate to press the request to speak buttons now or as soon as possible. And I now call on Jim-Eadie to open the debate. Mr. Eadie, 7 minutes, if you please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I am delighted to have the opportunity to introduce this debate to Parliament this evening, and I am grateful to all of those members who have supported the motion in my name. It is no exaggeration to say that the University of Edinburgh is a unique institution, without which not only Scotland but the world would have been very much poorer. Founded in 1583-84 by its own town, it came into its own in the 18th century as a leading creative centre of the Scottish Enlightenment. Under the leadership of the Reverend William Robertson, its principal for over 30 years, the university produced students of genius, among them Sir Walter Scott, founder of the modern historical novel, Adam Ferguson, who founded social anthropology, James Hutton, who founded geology, and John Playfair, who developed mathematics and geology. The university's medical school became the greatest in the world, holding its place for well over a century. Edinburgh exemplified the Scottish tradition of the democratic intellect that education is the right and the duty of every person, unfettered by the restriction it suffered elsewhere to be limited to the ruling class and to force its students into narrow orthodoxies, religious and otherwise. In Europe, the Enlightenment was opposed by universities in Edinburgh, followed by other Scottish cities. The university led the way. And today, the university has demonstrated that it is possible to maintain high standards of academic excellence and at the same time to widen access to working-class students from the most deprived neighbourhoods through initiatives such as the Lothians Equal Access Programme for Schools. Widening participation is a strategic priority for the university, and this is being pursued vigorously through a number of successful projects, including Visit Campus Days, summer schools, mentoring and buddy schemes. There are over 9,000 universities in over 200 countries worldwide, and global rankings of various kinds are used to find the best according to a range of criteria. The impact of research contributes 20% to a university's overall score, and the Scottish Government's Global Excellence Initiative has enabled the University of Edinburgh to invest in high-calibre early career researchers. This has boosted the university's research profile, which in turn attracts talented students and staff from all over the globe. The most recent research assessment exercise confirms Edinburgh as a first-class institution for research, as 96% of the university's departments were found to produce world-leading research. The university was awarded a record £300 million in competitive research grants in 2012-13, a 20% rise on the previous year, and the university has secured £1.1 billion in competitive research grants over the past 5 years. Notable successes, such as the confirmation of the boson particle by Professor Peter Higgs, is testament to why Edinburgh is placed so highly in the QS rankings. For over 40 years, the University of Edinburgh has successfully commercialised the intellectual property created from its world-leading research, generating intellectual, social and economic benefits to both Scotland and the United Kingdom. The university's commercialisation arm, Edinburgh Research and Innovation, seeks to promote the university's IP to potential funders, collaborators, licensees and investors. It is an enviable record in guiding the university to some of its most significant achievements in invention and innovation throughout recent decades. Innovations such as the first genetically engineered vaccine against hepatitis B in 1980, the licence of which has since generated over £50 million of income to the university and the Darwin Trust. The first prototype sensor-assisted smart wheelchair for children with severe and multiple disabilities was developed and manufactured in 1987. Transforming the lives of those children. The first miniature digital camera in 1990, in which the technology was licensed to spin-out company VLSI Vision Limited, which in 1995 became the first Scottish university spin-out company to list on the London Stock Exchange. In the past 5 years, ERI has supported staff and students in the formation of 171 new spin-out start-up companies across a wide range of sectors. Edinburgh is supporting student entrepreneurs to build high-growth businesses in Scotland. And all of this activity is contributing significantly to the economic footprint of the University and of Scotland. On top of its academic benefits, this commercialisation of research provides real benefits to the wider economy. The formation of new companies, the licensing of university technology means that the ERI's commercialisation activities generate over £140 million of gross value added per annum in Scotland, supporting over 2,400 jobs in the process. As the MSP for Edinburgh Southern, I'm fortunate to have two hubs of world-leading projects within my constituency: regenerative medicine at the Bioquarter and energy management and environment protection at the King's Buildings. The Edinburgh Bioquarter is an academic medical centre that combines outstanding biomedical research from the university with the clinical expertise of NHS Lothian and a seasoned team of industry professionals. And that is supporting, through its translational medical research, 900 hospital beds and 1,200 researchers, and that is set to rise significantly over the coming years. Also located at the Bioquarter is the Scottish Centre for Regenerative Medicine, where 230 researchers conduct pivotal work on stem cells and other regenerative therapies for conditions such as Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, diabetes and motor neuron disease. And this clinical excellence is being advanced to deliver the bench-to-bedside approach in addressing the challenges posed by degenerative diseases. Excuse me. Commercialisation is just as efficient at the Bioquarter as across the rest of the university, as a team of scientists and business people with over 150 years of commercial experience are engaged in this endeavour. And all of this activity is designed to accelerate the development of new treatments for human and animal diseases by working with researchers, industry and investors to create new medicines, diagnostic tools and medical devices. The Institute for Energy Systems, formed in 2002 and located at the King's Buildings, is one of 5 multidisciplinary research institutes within the School of Engineering. Integrated research combines 40 academic and research staff alongside 50 postgraduate students, focusing on areas such as marine energy, power systems and energy and climate. Their work has led to the creation of the Flowwave TT project. A world first, this unique facility simulates combinations of waves and currents to recreate the extreme conditions of European coastlines and will be a vital tool to help engineers harness the renewable power of the sea. Presiding Officer, all of these examples of research and innovation demonstrate the university's ability to harness the intellectual power of its academics, researchers, postgraduates and undergraduates. Perhaps the final word should be with one of the university's finest sons, the historian Owen Dudley-Edwards. He states, "If Edinburgh is internationally recognised today as guarantor of academic excellence tomorrow, it holds that place because of its grounding in the triumphs of yesterday, above all in the principles of academic freedom and the knowledge that what its youngest student may write can still inspire its most honoured professor, and that teaching and research remain each other's partners, not rivals. But it also owes its fortune to the warmth, humour, friendship and love which sparkle from its history."
Many thanks. I now call on Malcolm Chisholm to be followed by Marco Biaggi.
I'd like to congratulate Jim-Eadie on bringing forward this important motion, and also, of course, congratulate Edinburgh University on achieving top 20 status in the world rankings. I think Jim-Eadie gave a very interesting excursion through the history of the university. He did forget to omit to mention that it also had the first English literature department, certainly in the UK and possibly in the world, which is of interest to me since I did study there several decades ago. And in fact, I think it was Hugh Blair who was the appointed in 1762 Regius Professor of Rhetoric and Belles Lettres, and 100 years before English literature was studied at Oxford and Cambridge. The motion mentions the quality of staff and students, and I think I looked into the criteria for the rankings, and apparently employers were asked about the quality of their students. They didn't ask me. I don't know whether that would have made it better or worse, but clearly many students were asked and gave high commendation to the university, and I would certainly second that on the basis of my experience. Of course, the quality of staff is also crucial as well. I can't talk about staff in the present, but certainly I had many outstanding teachers in my day. All I would say about staff, I don't want to introduce a sour note into the debate, but I think we should, it's quite appropriate in this debate to recall the publicity there's recently been about 0 hours contracts, not I think for the lecturers, but for other important staff at the university. I'm very pleased that Edinburgh University has now pledged to get rid of those contracts, and I think it's important to make reference to that today. Now, clearly, the main criteria, although it's not by any means the only one for getting into the top 20, is the research carried out by the university, and the motion refers to £300 million in competitive research grants, and clearly that covers a wealth of disciplines and research areas, and Jim-Eadie has mentioned some of the outstanding examples of projects at the university, and 3 pioneering ones I would mention. I think at least one's been mentioned by Jim-Eadie, is the recently opened Scottish Centre for Regenerative Medicine, the major new test facility for marine energy research and development at King's Building, and also the Higgs Centre for Theoretical Physics, which is obviously going to expand insights into theoretical physics. And clearly the links between those and our key economic areas are very obvious. Perhaps renewable energy springs to mind, given the vast importance of that both economically and for climate change, and not least, in fact, for Edinburgh and our hopes for a marine energy hub at Leith Docks. The motion also refers to the commercialisation activities of the university's research and innovation arm, and points out that £140 million of gross value added was contributed by that. But I did notice a report this week, I think it's relevant to mention this as well, on the performance of Scotland's research base in life and chemical science. And it pointed out that Scotland was ahead when it comes to collaboration between its universities and foreign companies, but lagged behind in forming alliances between homegrown firms and academics. I didn't see a breakdown between individual universities in that report, but we obviously can't be complacent about this, because this is a key area for economic progress, the commercialisation of innovation. I don't know, is it strict 4 minutes? I can't really take an intervention.
Go on, take an intervention.
Oh, well, okay then, right.
Yes, on the subject of commercialisation, he'll be aware that Scotland's fourth leading university, Heriot-Watt, hosted the Converge Challenge Awards last night, in which Edinburgh University featured amongst the prize winners, and that provides, it's funded by the Scottish Funding Council amongst other sponsors, and it helps academics and researchers take their ideas to market, and provides them with quite considerable backing. Thank you.
Well, that was a very useful contribution. Thank you very much to Joan McAlpin for that. I'll just try and draw my remarks to a close. But having made that point, I was pleased to see that Scottish Enterprise unveiling plans to open innovation centres at universities to help businesses and academics develop products and services, and a site has already opened at Edinburgh for digital health and care. And once again, and this is the last word I'll say, it's back to the life sciences and the BioQuarter that's referred to in the motion. This is clearly a massive area for Edinburgh University, and then great spin-offs again for the economy and obviously for health as well. And only this week we heard of some great research by Professor Sarah Wild in an international collaboration on type 1 diabetes. So much to celebrate. Congratulations to Jim-Eadie for drawing it to our attention.
Many thanks. I now call on Marco Biaggi to be followed by Gavin Brown.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. In our lives, we each choose for ourselves our own yardsticks of success, and all of Edinburgh's universities each excel at their own chosen mission. For example, Napier, an innovative professional university, or the Open University in Scotland, based in my constituency, whose satisfaction results in the National Student Survey other universities could only dream of. But for Edinburgh, in its own words, the principal aim is to be a world-leading centre of academic excellence. Jim-Eadie's motion, which I thank him for bringing to the Chamber, lists the QS ranking. A global research-intensive ranking, it befits a global research-intensive university. In those rankings, Edinburgh stands above American behemoths like Berkeley, Duke, Northwestern, and even Ivy League Brown. Excuse me. And a year at those universities carry... I think I may have caught whatever Dennis Robertson has. A year at those universities carry price tags of $19,000 up to $46,000. To the young person from Leith or Liberton, Dunby Dykes or Drylaw, the price tag for a year at Edinburgh is zero. But league tables aren't the be-all and end-all. They do not convey the full range of fondness and esteem. As Burns said, "Would some power the gift to gie us to see ourselves as others see us." So what do those people who wouldn't blink at spending $40,000 a year on a degree think of what is offered by the institution on our doorstep? Well, Arcadia University, an elite US liberal arts college specialising in study abroad, describes Edinburgh to its students thus: one of the most distinguished research institutions in Europe, the University of Edinburgh, with its ancient and modern buildings, its long and storied history and its lively student atmosphere, is a very popular choice for study abroad students. The University of Southern California, Edinburgh is regularly voted one of Europe's most desirable places to live. High praise indeed for a university that is based in glamorous LA. There is something for everyone, from museums and art galleries to a great clubbing and music scene. Over half the city is covered by parkland and public gardens. Or Jamie Slater, a study abroad student from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., whose blog that is starting right now about her experience in Edinburgh is just one of the great many out there. Before arriving in Edinburgh, I had been told it was a gorgeous and unique city and that I would absolutely love it. I'm happy to say that it has lived up to and surpassed those high expectations. These are universities that time and time again send students to Edinburgh who leave not just satisfied, but having made a lifelong connection to the university, to the city and to the country. And if those comments were sometimes more about the city than about the university, then I say that they are interlinked. The city and the nation, the city and the university, and the city, the nation and the university are all interconnected, not just with the university bringing excellent teaching and soaring research income, but in the reputation, in the people it draws, the people it develops and continues to be held dear by, an alumni population that spans the globe, from Edinburgh Central to Central America. I was once myself a young person who was flirting with the University of Edinburgh. At school, they caught my eye across a crowded room full of prospectuses, but I was drawn by their charms and I applied, only eventually to spurn them and fall into the arms of one of their rivals. After my first degree, it looked like we might have hit it off again, but a dashing southerner came along and made me a better offer. But today, knowing as I do the real warmth that's felt by so many for the University of Edinburgh, I can only look back and wonder and perhaps reflect that of all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, it might have been.
Many thanks. I now call on Gavin Brown to be followed by Sarah Boyd.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I start by congratulating Jim-Eadie on securing this debate and giving, I think, a particularly interesting speech going through the history of Edinburgh University. Marco Biaggi talked about him spurning, I think, Edinburgh University. I have a similar tale, I have to say, except it was the other way around, when Edinburgh University spurned me when my exam results were not quite what I hoped they would be. But let us skip over that and I think congratulate particularly the staff and the students of Edinburgh University on getting a terrific ranking result based on all that they do or have done over the course of the past 12 months. I had a little look at the QS report, or the QS points that served Edinburgh so well. In terms of the areas they look at academic reputation, employer reputation, students, international faculty and citations per faculty. And of course, as you would expect, Edinburgh scored highly on all of them. But in academic reputation, something which all speakers have referred to so far, they got a score of 99.7 out of a possible 100. It's obviously close to impossible to get far higher than that. And that, I think, highlights just how strong they are when it comes to academics. But this scoring this year was no flash in the pan either, as again many have touched upon. I was only able to find the rankings back until 2007, but it paints, I think, a pretty useful picture. They were 23rd globally back then. They moved up the rankings to 21st. They were then 20th, and now this year they find themselves 17th on the planet in relation to where they are. Their scores, of course, increased steadily over that time as well, from an 88.8 to a 91.3. So they're clearly doing well across all areas, and they have moved steadily but firmly up the ranking tables on all areas over the past 6 or 7 years. One thing that I think jumped out at me, though, from a presentation they gave just recently, we heard about the excellent work they do in relation to renewables, in relation to the bio-quarter, in relation to how they help cement a global reputation, not just for Edinburgh, but for Scotland as a whole. And we heard also about the competitive research grants for which they had a record year. Of course, they fit very importantly into the wider economy of Edinburgh and indeed Scotland. They are the third largest employer in Edinburgh, with well over 8,000 full-time equivalents, I think 12,000 staff in actual fact. They add well over £1 billion to the economy of Scotland. They support, it's estimated, around about 23,000 jobs or so. And of course, it's a big factor for many inward investors who come to Scotland. And of course, they reckon the tourism aspect alone of Edinburgh University is worth the best part of £17 million. But one statistic that just jumped out at me on a recent presentation, on which I will close my remarks. The Edinburgh Research and Innovation section had some particularly interesting figures, but one of them which just, I think, really encapsulates what Edinburgh University is all about is this. Since 1969, they have created over 262 spin-out companies, and an impressive statistic in itself. But I was more captured by this. Of those 262 spin-out companies created since 1969, 81% of them are still trading, and 89% of those are still in Scotland. I think those are remarkable statistics from a remarkable department in a remarkable university. And in closing, Deputy Presiding Officer, I look forward to finding out how they fare in the QS survey in 2014. Thank you.
Many thanks. And due to the number of members who still wish to speak in the debate, I'm minded to accept a motion under Rule 8.14.3 to extend the debate by up to 30 minutes. Mr Eadie, would you like to move such a motion?
Formally moved.
Many thanks. Are we all agreed? We are. So I now call on Sarah Boyack, 4 minutes or thereby, please.
Presiding Officer, and can I add my congratulations to Jim-Eadie as well, and thank him for bringing this debate to us today, because it does give us a chance to talk about the success that has been created by Edinburgh University. To achieve the world rankings that Edinburgh has attained is hugely significant and incredibly impressive. I very much welcome the briefing from Edinburgh University, because it puts centre stage the work of the staff at Edinburgh University, and it rightly congratulates them for the huge amount of effort they've put in. As a former academic myself, the statistic in there, and I'll just draw one out, of the research assessment exercise in 2008, the fact that Edinburgh had 96% of its departments carrying out research that was world leading, I just can't overestimate to you how huge an achievement that is when you think about the pressures of teaching, the pastoral work with students, to be able to deliver that level of excellence right across the university is both remarkable and an incredible achievement. And the virtuous circle that Edinburgh talk about, I think, is part of the reason for that success. Edinburgh has been hugely successful in punching above its weight in all sorts of ways. I think the comments by Jim-Eadie, by Marco Biagi and by Gavin Brown tonight about research excellence in terms of competitive research grants is absolutely worthy of comment. When you look at their capacity to generate research grants from the rest of the UK, but also the EU level as well, and the international partnership and cooperation work at Edinburgh University is worthy of comment. I want to mention just two aspects of the research, though, that I want to comment on in Edinburgh. The informatics department burned to the ground in 2002. When you look at the work that the informatics department now turns out, it is a fantastic achievement. And I think the work of the last government in helping to build those new research facilities, I'm always deeply impressed when I just see the whole range of students and academics that are working out of that building. That was a huge achievement. I also want to just mention briefly the social science and governance work that the university does, which I think is also groundbreaking, and it's not necessarily highlighted in Jim-Eadie's motion in front of us today, but I think it is worthy of comment. And the work that is being done to look at the governance of Scotland by Edinburgh University is first class. It builds on Edinburgh's history. As others have commented, Edinburgh has a proud history. I just want to refer to Crystal Macmillan today, who was the first Edinburgh female science graduate in 1896, who has now inspired generations of women academics. And she was also a suffragette as well, which fantastic town and gown comment. But the work that has been done in contemporary politics and contemporary social sciences and looking at gender politics and evaluating the contribution of women and asking some tough questions as well, I think is also something we should welcome. Finally, I just want to make a comment about the fact, as others have commented on, that we don't just have one university in Edinburgh. The fact that we have 4 universities in Edinburgh that are all pursuing excellence in their own ways is something that is worthy of comment as well. And when I was picking up my briefings today before I came into the chamber, I thought it was an act of chutzpah that Harriet Watt had just wanted to remind us of their achievements as well. And I want to finish on the point of leadership, because in each of our universities we have fantastic leaders, whether it's Professor Tim O'Shea at Edinburgh, who has driven that fantastic record achievement, whether it's Steve Chapman at Heriot Watt University, or our 2 newer leaders at Napier, with Andrea Nolan, who's our most recent leader, and Professor Patricia Wend at Queen Margaret University. We have 4 excellent leaders developing slightly different universities, as others have said, but they're all about excellence, they're all about access, they're all about research, and they're all about thinking about how their students will go out into the world and become successful at whatever careers they select. So tonight we're celebrating Edinburgh University, but I think let's just put on the record the fact that Edinburgh as a capital and as a city has got the benefit of 4 universities, all working incredibly well in terms of collaboration across the rest of Scotland, the UK and the world. And I think that is something that is absolutely something we should all celebrate this evening. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Many thanks. Now call on David Torrance to be followed by Hansala Malik. 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, could I give my apologies to Jim-Eadie and the rest of the Chamber for not being able to stay for the remaining of the speeches due to another engagement. I'd also like to thank Jim-Eadie for bringing the motion to the Chamber today. I am proud to join my colleagues today in congratulating the University of Edinburgh on climbing to 17 in the QS World University Rankings. This is a fantastic achievement for a university, and it goes some way towards recognising the exceptional quality of its teaching and research activities. It also highlights Scotland's well-deserved place in the world as a leading centre for education. The University of Edinburgh is one of Scotland's ancient educational institutions. Founded in 1583, following the granting of a royal charter by James VI, it has provided Scotland with over 400 years of exemplary standards in education. In the early 18th century, during the Age of Enlightenment, the city of Edinburgh became known as a major intellectual centre thanks to its outstanding university, which of course central to Scotland's own Enlightenment experience. Over the years, Edinburgh University has witnessed many esteemed scholars and academics walking through its doors. Its impressive collection of alumni now features a plethora of famous names, including Charles Darwin, David Hume, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Alexander Graham Bell and Sir Walter Scott, to name but a few. Today, the University of Edinburgh is home to an impressive array of leading international researchers who provide a first-class standard of teaching to the many students. The university is particularly renowned for its School of Medicine, which was ranked first in the UK in the most recent research assessment exercise, RAE results. The university has also been praised for its excellence in the fields of veterinary medicine, linguistics, art, chemistry and mathematics. Supporting a university like Edinburgh, which is at the forefront of research and development in areas such as life sciences and renewable energy, is key to Scotland's future. That's why the Scottish Government invests over £1 billion a year in higher education, with an additional £13.8 million being allocated directly to funding research at our universities. By investing in these world-leading facilities, we are building on the foundations for a better and more secure Scotland for years to come. The University of Edinburgh plays a major role in this, and it is essential that we provide the necessary support to ensure that it continues to do so. Not only will the University-of-Edinburgh's ranking in one of the top 20 universities in the world enhance Scotland's status on the international stage, it will also help to attract more and more of the most talented and ambitious students and staff from all over the globe. Despite receiving a high volume of applicants worldwide, I am proud that Edinburgh University continues to welcome over 40% of its undergraduates from Scotland and another 29% from the rest of the UK. It is also significant to note that 74% of its undergraduates come from state schools or colleges. These figures provide some assurances that the university, despite its prestige and international standing, is still accessible to local students from all backgrounds. The University of Edinburgh also provides jobs and prospects to thousands of citizens, as it plays an important role in fueling our economy. Through its research and innovation programme, it actively promotes entrepreneurship and supports the creation of new businesses. In 2012-13, the university helped create 35 new companies, and it has done so constantly for the last 4 years. This has resulted in a major contribution to the Scottish economy, and I am grateful that the university continues to devote resources to this important sector of its work. It is clear that the University of Edinburgh offers a great deal to Scotland, and I cannot thank and praise its staff, students enough for their efforts in helping their universities to achieve such a prestigious accolade in the QS World University Rankings. As an already incredible proud Scot, I believe that there is much to have pride in our country, and this includes a reputation for quality education and research. This is thanks to no small part to Edinburgh University. I am sure the rest of our chamber will join me congratulating the university once again on its remarkable achievement.
Many thanks. Now call on Hanzala Malik to be followed by Alison Johnson.
Good evening, Presiding Officer. I would like to first of all congratulate Jim-Eadie for securing today's members' debate on the University of Edinburgh in the world's top 20 university. A great achievement indeed, and thank you for bringing it to this chamber today, Jim-Eadie. I am very proud that several of Scotland's universities have improved their position in the QS World Rankings. And if Jim-Eadie doesn't mind, I would also like to commend Glasgow University for improving its position by 3 places. So I also am very proud of my own hometown university. I congratulate them also. It's fair to say that Glasgow University and its students would not forgive me if I didn't mention the fact that they also have achieved something that to be proud of, and it gives me immense pleasure to mention them as well today with Edinburgh University. Both universities, Edinburgh and Glasgow, have benefited from support from the Scottish Funding Council. So there has been some good news. However, the same can't be said about the provision for our colleges in Scotland. On the 24th of October and on the 13th of January, Mike Russell, our Cabinet Secretary, said there are no queues for college places. Since then, I have witnessed college after college with list of students not getting a place. We must address this, otherwise our higher education system will suffer. I will certainly, sir.
Cabinet Secretary Michael Russell.
Interpretation of waiting list is very important, but I'm surprised that that is the case. Why the member has not been in touch with me directly to draw my attention to these things. I would have thought that would be the first thing he would do.
Hanzala Malik.
I wasn't really wanting to go into great deal in this topic today because I wanted to discuss the positive side of education in Scotland. However, just out of courtesy, I'm happy to respond to the Cabinet Secretary to say that I have in fact mentioned it before in this chamber. The Cabinet Secretary is aware that there are lists. I mentioned there was up to 600 people waiting in one college for one particular topic. However, I'm happy to write to you in detail. It's not an issue for me.
And in the time remaining, I would be grateful if you confine your remarks to remarks about
Indeed,
I
didn't really
please.
want to get drawn into that side. I just wanted, that was a passing remark because it affects our higher education. On a positive note, however, the Scottish universities continue to face all sorts of challenges, from immigration to issues about shortage or reduction in topics and so on. In a bid to ensure that student numbers continue, I think the universities have done a marvellous job, and I think I want to congratulate the universities, in particular the staff of all the universities in Scotland who have done a fantastic job, not only in terms of trying to ensure that the student numbers can be accommodated as much as possible, but actually have also increased and improved their standing in Scotland. And I think that's a huge achievement for them, and we are all very proud of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now call on Alison Johnson to be followed by Aileen MacLeod.
Thank you. I thank Jim-Eadie for bringing this motion to the Chamber this evening, and I thank and congratulate all those whose hard work is recognised in this ranking. I'm very proud of the 6 higher education institutions headquartered in Lothian region, which I represent. Each of them provides excellent education to thousands of students and carries out excellent research. There is, of course, some subjectivity in assessing the quality of teaching and research, but the rankings are made in a consistent way each year, so it's fantastic to see the University of Edinburgh achieving a ranking of 17th in the world in the QS rankings. Edinburgh has always performed very well in the research assessment exercise. In the last RAE in 2008, Edinburgh had the largest amount of research judged to be of world-class quality, that is 4-star quality, out of all the Scottish universities. And that's a reflection of Edinburgh's long history of excellence, with not just the kind of blue sky research that led Peter Higgs to the discovery of the Higgs boson, but also research designed to tackle very immediate problems affecting people. There's a huge amount of world-class medical research at Edinburgh. I could go on for hours about it, but I'll just mention one example that I'm particularly impressed by. The Dell box, invented by Professor Alistair McCulloch of the University's College of Medicine. It uses a deceptively simple collection of flashing lights and buttons to improve the diagnosis and treatment of patients with dementia by identifying whether they have delirium or not. I want to see more opportunities for women to contribute to excellent research in universities, particularly in science, technology, engineering and mathematics, which have chronically low numbers of women professors. Edinburgh is leading the way here. I'd like to applaud Professor Leslie Yellowlees, Head of Edinburgh's College of Science and Engineering, for championing initiatives across the university, working with the Equality Challenge Unit under the banner of the Athena Swan programme, taking a sophisticated and broad-ranging approach, raising awareness of unconscious bias and other forms of discrimination so they can be eliminated. I think the university's 17th place in the QS ranking is proof positive that taking an enlightened approach to equality and diversity is the best way to increase organisational effectiveness, because you're drawing on the widest possible pool of talent and letting all your staff know that their creativity and hard work will be recognised and rewarded fairly. We also need to see action to involve more women, people with disabilities and people from ethnic minorities in the courts, the governing bodies of Scottish universities. And that's why I've written to Professor Sir Timothy O'Shea, Principal of the University of Edinburgh, as well as the respective principals of the other 5 universities headquartered in my region, to ask them to take up the recommendations of the Equality Challenge Unit to help improve diversity on their governing bodies. And I've had some fairly encouraging replies to date. I'd like to see all the universities rethink their use of 0 hours contracts. So I was delighted to hear the University of Edinburgh announce recently that they would review the use of 0 hours contracts, and I call on all the universities of Scotland to follow Edinburgh's example on this. In recent years, the students of the university have worked with their elected Green rectors, including my predecessor Robin Harper MSP, Mark Ballard MSP, and currently Peter McCall, to influence the running of the institution in positive ways, including ending above-inflation rent increases in university accommodation, increasing the number of access bursaries, and ensuring international students have fixed fees for their entire degree programme. And they too will go on campaigning for an end to 0 hour contracts. They will campaign too for the setting up of a student housing cooperative and for ethical investment of universities' endowments. I'm conscious of the time, Presiding Officer, but I'm sure that all in the Chamber this evening are committed to help the university to continue to deliver world-class education and research for another 431 years. Thank you.
Many thanks. I now call on Aileen MacLeod to be followed by Kezia Dugdale.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and may I also add my congratulations to my colleague Jim-Eadie for securing tonight's debate and ensuring that the University of Edinburgh is in no doubt about our support and our gratitude for what it has achieved in being ranked 17th in the world in the 2013-14 QS World University Rankings, making it the only Scottish university to be in the world's top 20, competing alongside the top universities in the States, such as the MIT and Harvard and Boston, as well as those of Oxford and Cambridge. Now, as a graduate of the university, I am immensely proud of what is a huge achievement this is for the university, and it's credit to the dedication, commitment and hard work of all the staff, students and researchers. And particular thanks should be given to the university's principal, Professor Sir Timothy O'Shea, for his efforts in positioning the university as a leading global institution that assures it, and of course Scotland as a whole, of an international platform, attracting world-class researchers through the Scottish Government's Global Excellence Initiative, as well as his determination to widen access through programmes such as LEAPS, which ensure that students from schools and communities with no tradition of sending young people to the University of Edinburgh now have the opportunity to attend one of the world's leading universities. Presiding Officer, being ranked in the world's top 20 universities testifies to the university's growing international reputation and recognition in key research areas, including the life sciences, digital health and care and renewable energy. And the global impact of the university's research excellence in those areas is reflected by its considerable success in winning millions of pounds from national and international research competitions, not least from successive EU research framework programmes. And through its participation in 325 FP7 projects to date, Edinburgh is consistently in the EU's top 10 higher education institutions in terms of the number of participations in framework programme projects, in the UK top 5, and it's a top university in Scotland. Now, this tradition of international excellence in research is set to continue into the future. The University of Edinburgh is currently leading an international consortium bid to establish a European Institute of Innovation and Technology Knowledge and Innovation Community in the area of healthy living and active ageing, which, if successful, will be financed from the new EU Horizon 2020 funding programme. Now, Life Kick, as the Scottish-led KIC is called, will focus on developing new digital health technology through telehealth and telecare initiatives that, when implemented, will allow EU citizens to lead healthy, active and independent lives while ageing, as well as through new models of health and social care integration. Now, with the first call for new KIC proposals scheduled for early next year, the university, through Professors Mark Parsons and Stuart Anderson, has been working tirelessly with the support of Professor George Crooks, the Medical Director of NHS 24, the new Digital Health Institute based at the university, along with others such as Scotland Europa, Scottish Enterprise and the Scottish Government, to build a Team Scotland approach and to bring in other partners in Denmark, Spain, Italy and Germany to act as co-location nodes within Life KIC. Now, if successful, the Scottish-UK part of the Life KIC will be hosted in Edinburgh, and the overall KIC will be headquartered in Edinburgh. And this will enable the university to participate as an innovation hub and to act as a centre of excellence that integrate higher education, research and business activities. And as the only Scottish UK-led KIC bid in this area, I would ask the Cabinet Secretary to liaise with the UK Government Minister for Universities and Science, David Willits, to ensure there is also support from the UK Government in taking the bid forward in Brussels. Now, Presiding Officer, the University of Edinburgh is by any metric one of the world's premier research and teaching universities. That it has achieved such a status testifies to the hard work and abilities of the staff, the energy of the students and the leadership of the principal. Scotland enjoys an enviable reputation as one of the world's great centres of research and learning, a reputation that the successes of the University of Edinburgh ensures will continue.
Many, many thanks. I now call on Kezia Dugdale, after which we'll move to the Cabinet Secretary for the closing speech.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And like others, can I congratulate Jim-Eadie on hosting this debate and also in providing a circumstance where so many people can contribute to it, that we're still here at 10 to 6. After such strong speeches, it's hard to stand up and still contribute something meaningful after so many fantastic speeches, but I will do my best to do that. And I do so as a proud graduate of Edinburgh University, so that brings a particular degree of pride for me in contributing today. I want to make 3 comments about the ranking system itself. I want to say something about the ranking system used that puts Edinburgh as 17th in terms of spin-outs. I want to talk a little bit about the student experience, which appears in some ranking systems, but not in this particular ranking system. And then something about widening access, which, as far as I'm aware, doesn't appear in any of the ranking systems around higher education. And I'll try and do that quickly, Presiding Officer. Many people around the chamber tonight have talked about spin-outs, and there's no doubt that Edinburgh is perhaps a world leader, certainly is a world leader in this regard, but is head and shoulders above many other Scottish institutions and indeed UK institutions. And we heard a great presentation from the University at the cross-party group on university and colleges last week. And many of those figures which Gavin Brown used today came from that particular report, which is really quite startling about Edinburgh's specific success at spin-out companies. And I hope that the government's looking at what Edinburgh has achieved and working out how it can share that expertise so that other universities have the same chance of producing their own income through spin-outs and also helping their graduates set up themselves in business. The second point I want to make is about the student experience, which, as I said, doesn't appear in these particular rankings, but does in others. Student experience is very important to the marketing of institutions to bring students to particular cities and institutions. And part of the student experience I feel very strongly about is the role of the Students' Association in the student experience. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned today is the incredible record of Edinburgh University Students' Association in contributing to the university community. Actually, the university invests a lot of its own money in the Students' Association, and I think USA, as it's known, is perhaps the best funded students' association in the United Kingdom, because the university recognises how important it is to have an active student population. That's important in terms of the academic experience that students experience, fighting for longer library opening hours, better feedback on essays, a whole myriad of different issues where the academic element of a student's experience can be improved. But it's also about the pastoral services that are available on campuses. USA has a very important welfare service, which I used to work for, which provides frontline welfare advice to students when it comes to housing, sexual health, mental health, finances, a whole range of things which aren't necessarily provided at other institutions. And also in terms of representation, the university is quite brave to invest so much in the Students' Association when the Students' Association spends so much time fighting back at the university. But I think the university recognises that enhances the student experience, but also it promotes a sense of citizenship within the student community that equips them with the skills not just to go out into the employment market, but to contribute back to society. And many great political leaders have come from that student representative sector, so I think it's worth recognising their role. In the 45 seconds I have left, Presiding Officer, can I just make a remark about widening access? As far as I'm aware, widening access isn't actually assessed as part of any of the major ranking systems for higher education. And I think that's quite an interesting point to consider when we look at how we assess how good our universities are. And I'm concerned in a way about the degree to which we teach to the test. Universities want high rankings in these orders, and in order to do that, they will look to see what the methodology is and play to that. They'll try and emphasise their experience or expertise in research or whatever else. If widening access was something that the rankings considered, perhaps some of the best universities in the world would invest more of their time and energy at being better at it. And I just think we need to consider that, and I'm very interested to hear the Cabinet Secretary's remarks on that particular issue. But just to conclude, Presiding Officer, like others, can I pay tribute to a fantastic institution and wish it every success in the future. Thank you.
Many thanks. Now call on the Cabinet Secretary, Mike Russell, to close the debate on behalf of the Government.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and thank you for the opportunity to do so. I congratulate Jim-Eadie on this motion. I declare an interest. I too am a graduate of Edinburgh University, and although Cabinet Secretary for Education cannot be, if I extend the metaphor that was being used earlier, entirely monogamous in terms of their affections for universities, I have the strongest affection for Edinburgh University and for its achievements, and I congratulate the university on those. I was a student at Edinburgh University. I entered Freshers' Week 43 years ago this week, and last night when I was walking along Holyrood Road, I was looking at a number of freshers wandering around too and wondering what their experience of this great university was, particularly as the university has grown and changed so much. I was very struck by the point made about the investment in the university, which has taken place through the university's own resources and through other assistance over a period of time. Last night I was in the InSpace building, which is a remarkable building, which is used to encourage and develop new technologies that are coming forward. And the university has a remarkable track record, as has been said by various contributors tonight, in taking ideas and making sure that they work, and they work in the marketplace. And indeed, of course, that work, that knowledge exchange work, which Kezia Dugdale raised, is important. The Scottish Government, the present Scottish Government, made a commitment to ensure that there was a single knowledge exchange activity within Scotland. I will shortly be saying more about that. But we also want to protect the good work that is done. So it's not a single monolith we should put in. And Edinburgh is an exceptional university in terms of knowledge exchange, and I met some of the people involved in that just 2 weeks ago. Before I go into the substance of this, I want to respond to a couple of points made in debate. First of all, I'm very happy to take Ian MacLeod's point and to talk with David Willits about the KIC project. I think we have already been in touch about how we take that forward, and indeed I always try to work with others to project the future and work of Scottish universities on the international stage. Secondly, Kezia Dugdale makes some very important points about how things should work in universities, and particularly with ranking systems. There are a range of different ranking systems within the world. Indeed, next week, the Times Higher ranking systems will be announced. The QS rankings have a scoring system that goes as follows: academic reputation 40%, faculty-student ratio 20%, citations per faculty 20%, employer reputation 10%, international faculty ratio 5%, and international student ratio 5%. But there are a range of other rankings that take place, and they weight other things. I am certainly intrigued by the idea, and I think it's a good idea, that widening access should count as one of the important features of a university, the way in which a university develops itself and extends itself. And Edinburgh, of course, would have a good story to tell. It has 50 more additional widening access places in this current year than it had, and it's taken them up and is filling them. And in 12-13, Edinburgh awarded 158 access bursaries to Scottish domiciled new entrants. So if widening access is to be a feature of rankings, and I think it would be an interesting idea to try and persuade one of the rankings to take it on, then I think Edinburgh would continue to compete. And we should also look at the continuation of competition. The outcome agreement process that the Scottish Government has established with universities includes some consideration for each university of how they should perform. And the University-of-Edinburgh 13-14 outcome agreement says this: analysis of the rankings, that is looking at the progress that the university has made, indicates that this level of investment, and I'm talking about the global excellence investment, which is a new form of investment, which is designed to encourage particularly research and internationalisation, indicates that this level of investment, in addition to other strategies already in train, should move Edinburgh into the top 15 in the QS World Rankings. Gavin Brown pointed out the progress that was being made. We should remain ambitious to ensure that all our universities continue to progress in that way. The world rankings, all the different world rankings, are not the only judge of a university. There are other judges. The quality that students find in that university, the contribution that the university makes to the setting in which it lives, in Edinburgh's town, the city, and the wider country. And of course, the issues of access are intriguing ones. But we have to make sure that the competition continues, because that also draws students to us. And this is an international and global activity. And indeed, it is also very valuable to Scotland as a country. Higher education is the third largest sector in our economy. That is an extraordinary thought, the figures. I know that Gavin Brown always questions figures given this chamber, particularly from this bench. But I quote as a source University Scotland's own report, which actually gives that information. And it is also an enormous exporting activity. Indeed, the estimate is that universities are estimated to leverage £1.3 billion into the Scottish economy from sources outside Scotland. So I congratulate Edinburgh on what it has done. It has a wonderful and rich history. It is the place, as Jim-Eadie has pointed out, of Hutton and Hutton Stone, which we stand absolutely underneath. When we look up through that window there, we can see Hutton Stone and Salisbury Crag. The place, the foundation of world geology, the place that proved the two geological theories that went together. And of course, many other things. We've mentioned Dolly the sheep has been mentioned. The Higgs boson has been mentioned. Nobody has mentioned that Edinburgh is the last university in these islands which had a student executed for heresy. But I suppose that's probably something we should gloss over. But there is in history, in English literature, as Malcolm Chisholm has pointed out, in medicine, in veterinary medicine, and in a variety of other places, including in an area which I studied, in Scottish studies, in Scottish literature and Scottish history. It has been groundbreaking and has had tremendous success, both in teaching and research. And Jim-Eadie, presiding officer, made this point forcibly, and it should be made again. All our universities in Scotland are universities both for teaching and for research. And keeping those two things together, making sure that one feeds the other, and particularly encouraging the growth of postgraduate research and teaching in our universities is the way forward. This government, presiding officer, has increased investments for university research and knowledge exchange activities. This year we did put in place the Global Excellence Initiative with Edinburgh and Glasgow. I have to say to Mr Malik, Edinburgh and Glasgow are matching with their own fundraising in order to drive themselves forward in the international rankings. Glasgow did rise 3 places in QS to 51. St Andrews rose 10 places to 83. Aberdeen climbed 14 places to 148. So 4 of those universities in the top 200 in the world. I have to say, presiding officer, that that is a unique achievement, because Scotland does have, per head of population, the largest number of universities in the top league in the world. And that is remarkable for a nation of 5 million people. Edinburgh has been called the capital of the mind, and it is a place, and we have a country that values learning. Learning, to some extent, is in our DNA, and that is proved by the excellence of our universities. It's also proved by the way that those universities are attracting investment from places outside Scotland. I opened the Fraunhofer Centre at Strathclyde, the first Fraunhofer Centre in these islands, and that is an example of many of the type of investment that will take place and will continue to take place in Scotland. Universities are growing, universities are exporting, universities are increasingly attractive, and universities are driving our economy. Edinburgh is at the forefront of that. It is a wonderful university to attend, as so many young people and older people will discover this week as they enrol for the first time. We should, in this chamber, celebrate the success of Scottish institutions. They are, I believe, presiding officer, in conclusion, founded upon the principle of education being based on the ability to learn, not on the ability to pay. And long may that flourish in our country.
Many thanks. And declaring my own interest as a graduate of Edinburgh University, I too wish to add my congratulations to them and note with surprise that the Cabinet Secretary and I must have been freshers in the same week. And now close this meeting of Parliament.